Well, hey everybody, welcome to Recovery Live. Came to Believe Recovery's weekly live stream where we talk about everything addiction and recovery. And this is our Halloween version, October 31st.
And
I
we
want to
didn't even
welcome,
dress up.
all right, I want to welcome my co-host Alicia Martinez from over in California to the show.
Hello. Welcome.
No witch's costume.
No, no. My husband and I used to dress up and go to dinner every year because yesterday was our wedding anniversary on the 30th. So we would dress up at the
Mm.
gym and it was a big old thing. And then after 6 years of that, we're at 10 years now. We were like, we're over it. But we'd go to like fancy restaurants and be the only ones dressed up. It's kind of fun. But after a while, it's like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore.
It was a big deal when we were kids, a huge deal. Today they go around when it's light out, and we never would go when it was light out.
Wait till it's
It had to
dark,
be dark.
right?
Yeah. And
Well, it's freezing too where you are, isn't it?
well, it's not
Pretty
freezing
cold.
here today, but it's in the 40s. Yeah, it's chilly. It's the high is 50 here today, so yeah, it's not a warm day. But I met some people with a little kid today on the way into the office, and I was in the elevator, and they were dressed up. We got talking about trick or treating and all, and they said they are collecting all the candy and they have a school event and whatever it is, but they all had agreed that they were going to take 10 pieces of candy each and the rest gets donated to the troops. So I guess it was the attempt on the school to reduce
Eat
sugar
less
intake.
sugar.
That's right. And I have to say, I don't think this kids or their parents needed any
Are
more
gonna.
sugar.
Oh, right. Nobody
No,
needs
makes
sugar,
sense.
no
Anyway,
matter what.
Halloween, I'd love to hear. We're going to have our recurring guest, Dee from England, come on here in a second, and I'd love to have her mention what's Halloween like over there in the UK. It's actually a holy day of obligation in the Catholic Church. It's the Eve of All Hallows, so it's actually a people go to church today for Halloween. It has
Mhm.
become quite the holiday of hiding for me. I will shut the lights off, turn everything down, and
Don't
hide
come
in
to
the
my
dark room.
house. We have no candy. We
Right?
moved, so luckily we have like acreage, so nobody's
No.
gonna be coming to
Yeah.
our house.
Well, I live in a condo complex in New Jersey where they come in carloads
You're
to
gonna get
come
a
to the
lot.
condo complex
You
to
might
get it.
want to just turn everything off or leave.
I
Go
go to my
somewhere
I want to go
else.
to my sister's down the road where they don't come because she's kind of on a
Yeah.
main drag. So just
Hmm.
by 9 o'clock they're done. So anyway, yes, I'm a potty pooper, Kisara. She put boo on. She said I'm a party pooper. Well, let's get talking about a little bit about recovery and came to believe in some things coming up, guys. Um, we have a retreat coming up this weekend in Leesburg, Florida. Dale Barker and I will be there. He's also going to be a guest today, and actually, so is Cass.
I was
I'm
gonna
going to pick
say, is
Cass
it
up at
Cass?
the airport on Thursday, and she's coming to her first on-ground treat. Her and I will be doing a bit of evaluation, and we're going to sell merchandise, and we're going to sell more merchandise than anyone has ever sold to get that awareness out, so people have their end addiction and their I'm recovered and their four absolutes and whatever it is else they can
Yep.
on. Leesburg Retreat is the flagship retreat, really. It's like the first one from way, way back that it kind of all started from. Now, there was one before that at Camp Florida, we know, but basically, the original retreat was in Leesburg. And so we're going to be honoring that this weekend, and we expect to have a good time. Um, and then in a couple of
December.
weeks, we're going to have Mocktail Hour here in New York City. So if you're in the New York metropolitan area, New Jersey, come and join us for a modern mocktail hour, which we're
Look at
going to be
that flyer.
right 32 Prince Street in New York, which is a building adjacent to Old St. Patrick's Cathedral in fancy Soho. And we're going to have wonderful mocktails and put on by a group called Absence of Proof, who brings a bartender and everything to make mocktails for us. So fun. And then we're going to have a panel discussion on sober spaces and the future of recovery. So it's going to be kind of an inclusive conversation on recovery today from different perspectives. I will be on it. Elizabeth from Absence of Proof is also coming on, and so will Grant Wheeler. And it's all going to be moderated by Sean O'Hare. So we're hoping for this to be a fun, really informative, networking social event that people from all different places in the Sobriety Network and Recovery Network come and learn about us and learn about the Phoenix and learn about Absence of Proof and what sober spaces are like and what can happen. And maybe some of them would like to decide they'd want to try the 12-step process that we present and for their addiction. So we're really excited about it. It's going to be the first of a set of series, we think, mocktails. You know, Alicea, have you ever had a mocktail?
No, there's too much sugar in them.
Well, not all of them. Not all of them. Yes, North Pennines Retreat. We're going to get to the UK. That's coming up November 10th to 12th. Actually, that's in between. It's Leesburg, North Pennines, Mocktail Hour, and then Malibu. So you guys who want to come to California, and then virtual, right? Yeah. So lots going on. But I have found now since I went out for my birthday dinner and the restaurant I went to had mocktails. And they served it in like a martini thing, but it was a caffeine mocktail. It was good. It was like an espresso drink. Of course, that's coffee drinkers, right? Dale's shaking his head behind the scenes. It was a coffee drink. And now I've noticed in every restaurant I go to, if you flip over to their drinks, they have mocktails or non-alcoholic, and they're like fancy, and they're just like a thing today to have mocktails. So we think we're going to ride a wave with our mocktail hour, having people come and have a nice drink, network in a safe space, talk about recovery or whatever else they want to talk about, and then hear an uplifting story or some educational piece on addiction or recovery and the entire field of human maybe services, I guess we call it. Anyway, without further ado, today what we're going to be talking about is we got to talk a little bit about Halloween in Christmas, Florida, and Halloween in Manchester, England, because that's where our two guests are from, respectively. So before we get going, let's call on Dee Cunniff from Manchester, England, and Dale Barker from Christmas, Florida, to join us.
Hello.
Hello.
Hiya.
Hi. So what is Halloween like in Manchester, England, Dee?
Okay, so I think that I definitely know about the Eve of All Hallows, and I know that is that's actually where it all started. Mm-hmm. And I believe that in Mexico it's something like they practice the Day of the Dead, and it's actually celebrating the people that have gone, etc. So there's quite a lot of, that's good. The whole thing about Halloween, in Manchester, I would say we're just like with the north of England. We are not London, which is more cosmopolitan, and there's a lot goes on for Halloween now. Never used to be. When I was a child, we never did anything. There was a bit of a thing about a pumpkin, but you didn't really sort of know very much about it. Mm-hmm. But now it's quite big. There's some big celebrations go on. But I went to Marks and Spencer, which is one of our sort of big shops, and it's just covered in Halloween stuff. I just went the other day in Manchester. So it's probably not going to have as many activities going on as London, but we do it. And it's good fun, isn't it? It's great fun. And I know that some people balk at the idea of, the dark, and everything, but right. It's based in the Eve of All Hallows, and, so it's cool. I think it's really good to have any day to celebrate. What may happen, it's gone dark here now because we've got how time has changed, is we may get trick-or-treaters, but it's not quite as exciting as your trick-or-treaters, So, and in fact, if they come round, I haven't got anything.
Turn your lights off.
I actually carved my first pumpkin in 30 years this weekend. and I carved an owl face in front of it. And I'm trying to find a picture of it on my phone here. I wish I'd have known this ahead of time. I'd have put it for Cass to put it up, but it actually came out pretty well. I'm trying to figure out if I can do this without, well, I can't. But anyway, I had fun carving a pumpkin that I've never done. I haven't done it in, like I said, 30 years.
It's great fun, isn't it? Isn't it lovely to do things that are a bit fun, a bit creative, etc.? So the other thing I wanted to say was thank you for putting up North Pennines. We are going to be holding that next weekend. We have been able to. We've got people that are booked on, and we've been able, due to some people being very, very helpful to us, we've been able to support a few people to be able to come with support, because we raise money for sponsoring. I think you call it scholarships in America. We call it sponsoring. So we sponsor people who are in need, and we've just over the last couple of days, it's just been 2 or 3 people really, really deeply in need who we've been able to offer places to. So it's quite exciting, really. And for anyone in America, it's right in the north of England on the edge of Scotland, North Pennines. And then, but I'm also involved with retreats that are down in Kent, which goes right down to Dover, right down in the south of England. I know we're very little in a size as in relation to the USA, but that's like one end of England to another.
Good. I got my pumpkin picture where you can see.
Oh, that's really good.
That's
brilliant.
Look at Dale. He's just got such a derisive, shaking his head.
He doesn't like Halloween. I don't think he likes Halloween. An owl?
Wow, no comment.
Or a kitty. It looks like a kitty.
What a party pooper, Dale Barker.
So Dale Barker, just think it's the eve of All Hallows, and maybe come from that angle, and then it's a beautiful thing. Maybe it's a lovely day where people can be loving to each other and welcome their neighbors.
Like every other day.
Wow. Well, I have been to Dale Barker's house many times, and I would be really surprised if a single trick-or-treater came to your house, Dale.
No, we live way out in the country on a dead-end road with there are kids across the street, a couple of kids across the street, but I doubt they're going to trick-or-treat here because, you can't walk on the main road. It's not safe because there's no lighting or sidewalks or anything out where I live. But, this was a great day to drink, to party. And for me, when I was drinking, and same with my wife, Stephanie, we like to go, we didn't do it together, but back then, because we weren't together back then, but we both had stories of Halloweens that just were off the chain. And it's just a choice. I decided, when I can make my own decisions to decide not to associate myself with things, I just don't do it. And this is one of those days. I just, not out of fear or out of any other thing. It's just a decision. And I live one day at a time. So it'll be over. Now that I don't have to go out to dinner, I could just be home tonight.
Isn't that wonderful, though, Dale, that you can choose to not drink on a day where you would have drunk? That's amazing. And isn't it just great that in our lives now that we can make decisions because we want to do them? When we've recovered from alcoholism, we work in the program, and we can live our lives as we were meant to live them, to be happy, to be able to make decisions. We don't have to go along with the crowd, that we can do what we will, in God's will as well, because otherwise it can get a bit messed up.
Right. Yeah. It's not, I'm not hurting anybody by making this decision. I'm not taking it. It's not a selfish, self-centered decision. It's just a direction I've chosen. And I don't do a lot of things for reasons like that, because it's just not what I want to be a part of today. I'm a different person than who I was before I went through the steps.
Isn't that fantastic?
It is an amazing miracle for me that I get to be who I am today. And I'll just have to miss out on all that fun.
Right.
It's interesting because I was so when we say football in the UK, we mean what you call soccer, okay? And I was, a league match ticket book holder for Manchester United. I went to the big matches. I went to the FA Cup finals. I was, which is big things for us over here. And I was in, celebrating all the time. But my memories, they got very, very affected by, I don't remember them winning, the European Cup. I don't remember it because I was so drunk. And right. I don't want to do that anymore. And a lot of the activity around football, our football, is around drinking. And so I am interested in the World Cup when it happens and things like that. But my obsession was that it was so linked to drink. So I don't do it anymore. I just don't do it. And sometimes people are like, well, you used to be a big football fan. And I'm like, well, I am interested at times, but that bit of it was so distasteful. I just don't want it anymore.
So it's technically, Dale, it's soccer and they call it football.
Yeah, it's not even really on my radar,
She didn't take the bait, Dale.
I'm not. I know that we started everything. I know that everything comes through us, so I don't have to take any bait.
Oh wow! There you go. Well, that's there. I've been told
you're going to have to get out of the '60s,
right? I certainly would have had Halloween. Would certainly, Dale, have been a reason to party and drink and hard. And what I'm just hoping is the gym will be empty tomorrow morning because all the people hung over and they're not coming to the gym. That's what I'm hoping.
Exactly.
It'll be a nice empty place at the gym. Anyway.
Right. And with Halloween for me, and I think Dee was part of your struggle too, is with food. I mean, Halloween for me was eating all my kids' candy. That's all I cared about.
When it wasn't
3 bags of candy, all for me.
It wasn't so much food, but there was a lot of obsessional stuff going on before I went through the steps. And, so yeah, I totally get that. And I don't actually want to eat loads of candy. It's too sweet. I don't mind sweeter stuff, but it needs to be not too sweet. And that's just no, I have no interest. I won't be trick-or-treating hoping to get any sweets. I will not be doing so.
Well, you have discipline, which is one of the principles that we're going to talk about today that relates to the step we're going to highlight.
Yes.
Great transition.
8 and 9.
Right?
Good link.
So today, guys, we're going to talk about steps 8 and 9. And next week, Alicea and I will be back doing a book review. And I think we're going to review at least parts of a book called The Myth of Normal. I think, right, Alicea? We can't do the whole book because it's so big, but we're going to take a couple chapters out of it and talk about the myth of normal, which is how to live in a toxic society and issues that happen because of all sorts of stuff. And it's a very, very interesting book and very much relates to our lives today in America and in England, really in this half of the century and in the last 50 years, and the changes and how environmental and all sorts of things that affect all of us have led to lots of negative consequences in all of our lives in our society. And so it'll be interesting to talk about it. It'll be November. This is the last day of October. I can't believe that tomorrow is November 1st.
Crazy.
Oh my gosh, we're heading. It just goes, it seems like it's 4th of July and then you wake up the next day and it's Labor Day. And when you wake up November 1st, you wake up the next day and it's November 2nd.
So right? What is Labor Day about? What is Labor Day about?
Labor Day is the first weekend in September, and it has to do with somebody's got to be looking up the definition right now as I'm just fumbling through making something up about it. Cass.
I don't know. It's just another holiday for Americans.
Going to work and working and being in labor. It does have something to do with work. It's a day, but it coincides with the kids going back to school.
Oh, okay.
here in the United States. And it's the signal to the end of summer. Memorial Day starts the summer here, which is a Memorial Day. Generally, it's for remembering those who lost their lives in service. It's a military type holiday, national holiday.
Okay, right.
Memorial.
We've got like Poppy Day, where we have poppies that remember people who have died who've fought for various wars, and but we have bank holidays, and we have quite a few of them. I think they quite often coincide with what you have, and they're just called bank holidays. But again, I don't know why it's called a bank holiday. I suppose I think it might be to do with the banks, the actual where the money is, the actual places where they.
So now I'm going to be funny again. So do you think a bank holiday might have something to do with banks?
Well, I don't know, because it could be the bank at the side of a river, couldn't it? I mean,
smarty pants.
Doesn't have to be a bank that's in, that they're on holiday.
It would be the holiday from the side of the river.
Yeah, it could be.
Guys, I think we're going to be going down the road today. I'm just picking at you a little today.
That's all right.
You guys.
All right. So Labor Day.
Yep.
Labor Day is to honor the nation's workers and their contributions to the well-being of their country.
Wonderful.
Right?
Very good.
Well-being.
Really good. I think we could do one of those to honor the people that go out there and do everything.
We would call it a bank holiday, but
but the banks are always closed on those holidays.
Not Halloween. Oh yeah, they are on Labor Day.
Labor Day, Memorial Day, President's Day.
Not Halloween.
Not Halloween.
It's not a federal holiday. Anyway, we're going down the road. Let's talk some steps here today, guys. A little bit that we're going to talk about. And the steps we want to talk about today are still in what they call this restitution phase of the program that we present at the retreats that we run all over the country and all over the world to help people to access the freedom that the founders had in Alcoholics Anonymous. And if that's your path and you come and listen to what we do, we've watched thousands and thousands of people get freedom from this. And the steps are 8 and 9, right? 8 says made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So guys, let me give you, if you're listening and you're wondering, what's the context of that, right? Well, obviously, if it's step 8, there were 7 steps before it, right?
Yeah.
And the first step admitted some sort of a problem and unmanageability. The second step came to the realization that they needed a power that was greater than themselves. If they're powerless, they needed a power, and to come to terms with the idea of needing a power that's greater than themselves and being willing to accept the idea that they would be open to addressing or allowing a power within their life. And in the case of the founders, it was God and the God of the Bible that they had as the power. In step 3, you actually ask that power to come in and take over your life as your new manager and begin to help and direct you so that you begin to make better decisions and help to unwind this unmanageability, which is kind of what 8 and 9 are going to do in practical sense. Start unwinding some of the wreckage. And step 4, we start talking about our character and some of the natures that led to the behavior that led to this stuff that we now have to clean up. We have to tell someone about it and really become honest. It's a level of being honest. We become willing to have your new manager remove this whole nature, this whole being that we were before that created this mess. And then we ask this guy to do it. And now that we've got ourselves cleaned up for now, and we're now no longer going to do this, right? We've made this declaration. We have a new manager now. We've identified it, and we've made a decision, and we've turned over our will so that we now won't make these same mistakes based on some practice of a few principles. And now what are we going to do? Well, the program says that we're going to make a list of all the persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. And the principle here is love. So I wanted to start, guys, with a couple of questions maybe about this, and they're kind of 8 and 9 kind of go together. So let's just kind of, when you're in answering or in commenting, they do kind of go together. Why do we make a list? Who's on it? And what's an amends and apology? But let's talk about love. What if somebody came on here and said, I don't even know what love is? Like, what is love? What was the love that the founders were talking about?
Well, okay. So I think you haven't prepared me with any of these questions, which is good because that means I've got to use this brain. I'm thinking, well, I'm going to sort of suggest that it's really important to clarify that step 8 is just a list.
Right.
That if you need to, first of all, say step 8 is just a list so that you can write everyone down that you've harmed without going into, oh, I don't want to make amends to them. I don't want to make amends to them. You know, in 9, you start to look at who you should make amends to. So I think there's quite a distinction. And I think that's where that sort of love can start to come, because as you're writing out your step 8 list, and I learned this from Steve Foreman from the Came to Believe Recovery, because I had never really heard this before, but he said it will be in step 8 where you'll find out, you know, what you haven't dealt with in 4 that you need to bring to step 10. Because when you write out all these names that people you've harmed, you're going to get things come up like maybe resentment or fear or selfishness or dishonesty that you've asked for stuff to be removed in step 7 after step 4. But as you're writing that list, some things start coming up. You get an uncomfortable feeling inside when you write it down. And that's usually why people end up going like, oh, I don't want to make amends. I'm not writing anyone down. I don't want to make amends to them because of that. And that's why it's like trying to help people to write an amends list, to write every name down of anyone they've possibly harmed. And the big book says that, you know, we disregard the other person entirely when we're writing out, you know, when we're going to make amends, we disregard what the other person has done entirely, you know, and in inventory, we disregard the person. And it says when we're writing an inventory out that it's our inventory, not the other person's, the other man's, it says in there, but the other person's inventory. So I believe that that love comes out in that step 8. I think it's like as you go into that area and see that, it brings out things like forgiveness. You know, am I going to, you know, because I believe love involves forgiveness of other people when they don't do what you want them to do, that you can still care for them, even though they've done stuff. And self-love as well, because when I wrote that list, shame came up, like shame of all these things I'd done. And then where's my self-love there? Where's the love of me for being just a human being that's flawed, but is, you know, made in God's image and is pretty cool, actually, not such a bad person after all. So I think that all comes out in step 8. And then when you get into 9, you've got to actually deal with it, deal with what you've got to go and do and work it out with somebody else. So I'm a bit of a long answer, really.
So let's see what that. So we're going to go with a little a definition from the Bible for you in the audience, because we know that this was the definition, the things that they were reading when they were writing the steps. If they were to take a definition of love, they most likely were using this definition that comes out of the Bible, and it's in one of the New Testament books called 1 Corinthians. And let's just see what it says and see if you guys think that this is probably a cool way to be. It says that love, and if you've ever been to a wedding, you've probably heard this, right? Love is patient, kind, doesn't envy, doesn't boast, it's not proud, it doesn't dishonor others, it's not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs, does not delight in the evil, but rejoices in truth, always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Wow. Keeps no record of wrongs. That's that forgiveness. Does not dishonor others. That's that whole make amends. Doesn't harm anybody. Isn't self-seeking. It's not easily angered and keeps no record of wrongs. I think it's a pretty good definition, and would back the idea that if you're going to live in that love definition, you gotta go make right with all your fellow man. You can't get around it. And so that's, I think, where they were going with this. I was trying to get deep into like, where are they going with this? Why make amends? So, love and that principle in making this list. And it is just a list at this point. So how many people do we put on the list, Alicea?
All of them.
We look up all.
We look the word up, all, in the dictionary, and it means all. Right. But like Dee said, I mean, even if we get that feeling of like, oh, that means they need to be on the list. And then you can look at it at 9. It could be a future thing. It could be maybe you talk to your sponsor and that person doesn't really need to be on the list. We're just making the list. Like, get it out, right? And don't worry about 9 yet because we're only on 8. And yeah, and then later too, maybe more people will come up later and then you can always add them later on.
Yeah. But there's a second part to the 8th step. It's not only do you make the list, but you have to become willing to make the amends. And it says in the big book, if that willingness isn't there, you need to pray till it comes.
Mm-hmm.
So we're on a new basis of living, a spiritual program. And so we have to use the spiritual tools that we've been given, and we pray for willingness. And, faith without works is dead, is what it says. So, okay, we've got all this good stuff happen, but if we don't clean up our past, the threat is that we might drink again. And for us to drink is to die. So say you're willing but to know you're willing. And remember, when we do take somebody through the steps, we ask them ahead of time, and they say they're willing to go to any lengths,
right,
for freedom. So this is one of those any lengths, but is making the list. And that way you have something to work from when you become willing to start making amends to people, to love people, because that's what you're doing. You're letting what they did to you go, and you're trying to make up for what you did to them. And that's very selfless. That's very much about love. So,
well, Dale, you bring up a great point, and now I'm looking at this closer. And the way that they listed this step in these 2 parts is made a list of all persons we had harmed. That's what they did. And then they became willing to make amends to them all. So to Dee's point and Alicia's point, and the point I would make as well, you got to put everybody down on the list and then become willing if you're not, and pray about it and look at it and speak with someone about it. It's life or death for us if you think it. And if you're going to go to any length, right, become willing. And maybe it takes a year to be willing, but the name's on the list and you're halfway there.
Right. Mm-hmm. And you're going to continue to add people to your list as you live, because we make mistakes.
Yeah.
Step on the toes of our fellows. We have to learn how to stop having expectations of people's behavior and being critical of people. And we have to learn how to be honest. And these aren't things we just get, we have to practice that. And that's why it says in step 12 to practice these principles in all our affairs. I mean, we have to learn how to do that, because I didn't live that way before. I mean, it was lie, cheat, and steal to get what I wanted and to keep you from finding out what I did. It was a very much a different lifestyle for me today than what I lived before. And that's where mentors come in, and being around people, the fellowship, that's where that comes in as a positive, because you're not alone doing it. For me, it really
growing closer to God in step 10 and 11 also will help us, because the love definition that Tom read, we cannot do that. It's impossible. Just like the 10 Commandments, it's impossible. That's why there's Jesus to show us we can't do it. And there's him and there's grace, and we can grow from where we are, but we will never do it perfectly, ever.
Right.
And so that's a learning process too. Because when I was first going through the steps, I thought, okay, I'm done. But I wasn't. And then I was frustrated. and I'm never done. And it's just a continuation of growing and not judging others because they're below me or whatever, and not envying the ones that are, you know, in front of me. It's like, this is my journey and this is where I am. But even that is the learning process for me to even recognize any of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, you know, that sort of growing, for me, I think the way I can describe that, because in the big book, it talks about being cut off from the sunlight of the spirit. And I believe that when you do your step 7 and stuff goes, I believe that the spirit comes. And I believe that then the spirit works with us, because we're flawed human beings, like you're saying, Alicea, and we need to grow. And that growth happens as the spirit shows us, and things come to us when we're able to deal with it and able to help others. I must have been at least 7 years. I think I was 7 years without a drink. I'd worked through the steps for 3 of those years. And then just came on me this memory of this girl I was at college with that I had hurt because I'd gone along with a group of people who were quite bullying, and I went along with it. And I went to my sponsor and I said, this has come up in my memory, this girl. She was a lovely girl. I'd love her to be my friend. That was my first thing that I said. And she went, oh, she said, yeah, it's a terrible thing, this passive bullying, isn't it? And I went, what do you mean? Yes, they were terrible. Those guys and girls, they were terrible. She went, no, you, because you went along with it. So you were as much a bully as they were because you went along with it. And she got me to get in touch with this girl, and it was through like an email, because that was the only way I could do it. That was the only contact that I had. And basically the girl was like, yeah, I expected her to be like, oh, it's so lovely for you to be in touch with me, Dee. She was actually like, well, you know, thank you for letting me know. She said, because for 30 years I was, you know, wondering whether I was right about how you and the others serially bullied me for 3 years. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, you know, expecting perhaps a little bit like, oh, I can get a nice friend. And what she said was, because I said, what I said was, I hope you can forgive me, because that's in the big book about asking for forgiveness. And she said, well, she said, as for forgiveness, just stay around with those good people you're with now, and, you know, and goodbye. And that was the end of it. But I released her from worry, thoughts about, was she right that she'd been bullied, because I showed it to be the truth. And then I just had to sit with it, you know, that it was not going to be exactly what I wanted. But that came up years after I'd done my original amends. And I do believe I was shown to do that to be of maximum service to her, not to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we make those, that was a great example. I remember you telling that story. They don't always go the way we think they're going to go, right? And that one kind of, but you did, there's some release. I'm sure that she had the contact, and it was some validation that what she thought it happened was what happened. And you got humbled a little bit, I guess, and had to kind of face the idea that you did do that. But you made an apology, and you did what you could do, and that's what they tell us, right? We do what we do, and we move on.
Yeah, water over the dam, the book says. It's actually water over the dam.
Water over the dam. So let's talk about step 9 a little bit now, as the time's going on. So we got this list, and now what are we going to do about it? The book says, you know, what are we going to do? Some of this list of making amends. So I got this very straightforward question, and guys, it's not a trick question, but why should we make amends practically? Like, think about this. We're going to talk about why spiritually the book says that the amends and the getting right with your fellow man. We know here, and those that are have been involved in the fellowship of AA, the way the founders did it, understand the principles that are behind it, biblical principles that say that we need to be straight with our men through love, loving to all. But what are some practical reasons? Like if someone said, why do I got to make amends to somebody? What does it matter? How does that make me stay sober? Right? Practically, like taking sugar away, I don't get sugar cravings anymore. You know what I mean? It's really practical in other avenues. Where would you guys say some really practical, straightforward things happen and benefit you that support your relief from addiction and freedom by making amends?
Well, the first thing is it tells you to make direct amends. Step 9. It says direct amends. And I know that some people do try practically to swerve that, you know, in this, you know, like a text or, you know, although it does say you can approach on the flank. So I think that that's a very practical thing that we have to do. As far as why we have to do that, it appears as if God, our higher power, the creator, wants us to, you know, it says in the book of James, which you were talking about, the books, you know, the Bible that the program came from, it said, confess to your fellows and to God. So I think there's a certain amount of confessing. There's confessing there. It's not just step 5 we're confessing. There's some confessing here. I would say practically that's important. What do you think, Dale?
Well, I mean, it's like there's a paragraph that talks about when we owe money. What do you do when we owe money? If you owe somebody money, you're dodging them if you don't want to pay them back. So they're in your brain, in your mind. You're living in your head. If you make amends to that person and you pay that money back, or if it's a credit card balance that you've defaulted on, you make arrangements to make payments to pay that money back. You're now free of that bondage of self and of being in your head about that stress. You don't have to deal with anymore. That's done. And the more of those type of things, maybe you've committed a crime. You know, that's in the book too. There's several things that we need to be free of, because I mean, this is a disease of the bondage of self. Now, like Alicea said, we can't do anything perfect, but we can take steps to do better, and it creates discipline in our life. And that's the principle for the 9th step is discipline. We learn to live a different way, taking care of things, not putting things off, not running, not hiding, not lying. And before you know it, your inventory becomes very small every day. You don't have that much stuff going on the negative side, and you have a lot more going on the positive side of the inventory sheet, and you start to give back instead of taking, you know, and you learn how to give back. You know, when I was new, I didn't really get all this stuff because I hadn't done any of it. I mean, I knew it intellectually because I read the book, but practically I didn't until I started doing it. And then all of a sudden I started seeing the promises of the 9th step come true in my life. A fear of economic insecurity will leave us. I mean, I had more money than I knew what to do with. And I was paying a big amount of child support. I never been without debt, so I didn't know what that was like to live debt-free. And when I removed that debt from my financial debt, it freed me up to do so much more. I liked it. You know, it gave me incentive to make more amends. And I was a blackout drinker, so I didn't really remember all the people I had harmed. But when I got on Facebook later in sobriety, and people started seeing that I was a different person than I was when I was the jerk they all hated, they started befriending me and talking to me and and I got to work with a couple of them because of the way we drank together. And so amends go on. You know, I'm always willing to keep my side of the street because it frees me up to get so much more good in life.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
What do you think, Alicea?
I was just going to say Oh, practical. Well, I don't know if this is practical, but it's me or us practicing not being selfish for once and not doing it for me. I'm actually doing it for them. But also, I will get the benefit from it. I will get the 9-step promises. But if I can practice humility and discipline and doing it, then that's stepping into the realm of not being selfish and all about me all the time. Because if it was about me, then I'm not going to do it because it's uncomfortable and I don't want to do it. But just got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I was just thinking, and I'm sort of bursting a bit, so I want to just say something. I've got something really good happened to me today, which the only person besides me that knows is Tom. And that's because it just happened before I came on to Recovery Live. And the way I'm going to link this, there is an element of me doing it because I'm bursting. But, you know, looking at the step 9 promises, you know, that all these things would go away. So, you know, the self-seeking will disappear, you know, fear of economic insecurity. And we'll realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves, you know, like at the end of that. And I was, you know, like absolutely destroyed at school, pretty well destroyed at college, got a degree, but it was like, you know, really like not a proper pass. It was pretty not good, survived the years. And I've just found out that I passed my master's in theology. I've just found out that I've got and my dissertation, and I got merits and distinction. And I'm like, and I'm dyslexic. I've been sort of, you know, shown to be dyslexic. Now, if I hadn't have done what I didn't want to do, I didn't want to go and see that girl. I didn't want to write to that girl. I didn't want to go and see many people. I really didn't want to go and see many people that I had to make amends to. I really bulk actually at apology. It comes inside and then I have to ask God to help me. But I have done it, every one that's come up. And Danielle has just said, well done, Dee. And thank you, Danielle. I receive your message with love. But it's an outcome. This is an outcome of it. And I just want to say that Danielle is coming over to Leesburg. So she's coming over from the UK to Leesburg. Dale, you'll be there, will you?
Picking her up at the airport.
Oh, how fantastic. So I did let Danielle know that we were on Recovery Live because I thought it might all come up. So you're actually picking Danielle up. How wonderful.
Now she knows who to look for.
Yeah.
Danielle, buy a Yankees hat in the airport.
A handsome Red Sox fan.
When you get in the car with them, it'll be a lot of fun.
I've got a Red Sox hat for you, Danielle. You can borrow.
All right. Anyway, so that's kind of what I was looking for too, is those practical things like what Dale said. Money that you owe and debt that you're in and the stresses that you're under. There's real freedom that comes when you go and make an amends. And it's one thing to call your credit card company, right? The difference between apology and amends, and say, I'm really sorry for not paying my bill. But it's another thing to say, and now how can I pay it back? So a big piece of an amends is, I'm really sorry what I did to you or what happened. Is there anything I can do to make it right?
Yeah.
People find that very appreciative. It's not just sorry, but you're going that step further to say, not only am I sorry, I've had a lot of people say sorry to me, right? Well, I'm sorry. I'm like, all right, well, you're sorry, but are you going to do anything about it? Are you going to make it, could go through your head. But someone says, is there anything I can do to make it better? Or I'm going to make it better in the future, or I'm going to make it go. It's a part of this. I love the freedom, Dale. I had to hide from all kind of people because I owed them something or an apology or an amendment or something. And so if I'm going to practice that principle of love from now on, so I'm not going to have any more on my 8-step list, or not that are going to stay very long because they're 10 steps, right? And they come off quickly because we're going to learn how wonderful it is to stay straight with our fellow man this freedom, this serenity, this intuitive nature of knowing what to do, and all this freedom that comes, the promises of step 9, it sucks us into this life and doesn't want us to get back into that other life. All of that on top of it. Now, never get into this place where we maybe need a drink to relieve ourselves of all the anxiety created by all the stuff.
So Danielle is telling you that her suitcase has got bright yellow recovery 12 steps written on it. So you'll be able to see her there, Dale, through that. Good for you, Danielle. So that's what you're saying there is absolutely true. I mean, it's just so amazing the freedom you get, you know, from doing all this stuff, even though you don't want to do it. And you know, I've got an exciting thing happen today, but it's not exciting every day. Some days are really great, you know, they're not great. But my life of freedom based around doing that stuff, and then the step 9 promises coming true. And all I can just say is, if you haven't made all your amends and you're thinking, which some people do, oh, the step 9 promises haven't come true. I mean, in a lot of AA meetings in the UK, you just get people reading out with newcomers in the room. These are the promises. They call them the promises. They don't mention there's promises in every step. And they read it out, and they don't tell people how to work the steps. And maybe they moan and groan about their day, and they don't carry the message of the program. And then people hear those promises and go, well, that's not come true for me. I've just been coming to meetings. Well, or maybe you've worked the steps and not done all your amends. It tells you that these promises come around halfway through step 9. So they start to happen around halfway through and then finish it off, and then they will all come. So if people say they've not got the promises and not the step 9 promises, you've got to work step 9 in order to get it.
It's part of the action that we have to start. You know, it's that outside job now. And when I know that before, if I didn't do 1 through 7 and gain some humility and have been submissive and took on a new manager that was now empowering me, I never would have made amends. If you told me step 1 was go make amends to everybody you had harmed, I wouldn't have done it.
No,
so the process is important, guys. And we start on 1 because they did 1 because that's the first thing. We have to get ourselves straight. We've got to get our minds straight. We've got to get ourselves wrapped around the idea that what we did was not how we want to be anymore. And then get the power and the humility to decide that I've got to make it right, and that in the end it'll be better. We made the mess, let's clean it up.
Yeah, it's really easy to fudge this, you know, to sort of say, almost like I'm sort of, you know, well, I'm acknowledging I did that, and then fudge it a bit, you know. And, you know, I love the way the book tells you what to say, really. It gives you all the different situations, and it tells you what to say. And it tells you to consult with someone. And it says to, you know, before you would go, and make sure that you've got permission of someone if it's going to involve them. And then it says, you ask God. It says you actually pray. It's got that, you pray, and then you get guidance, you know. So I believe that everything is in there. So that's why when people have been to a retreat and they go through the steps, we really push hard to say, you sit down with somebody, even if it's just a temporary sponsor, and get them to read those pages. I can't remember the page numbers, Dale. What are they? Are they 76 to 84 or something like that? The pages in the big book, which are about step 9.
Exactly. It is 76 to 84.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
You got it.
That's what a master's degree gets you right there.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. I mean, so I have counseled or mentored or sponsored several men that had things they had to make amends for. They were drastic actions. And on page 80, it talks about that. So how do you handle that? Well, if you've obtain somebody's permission. So if what you're going to do is going to involve somebody else, you got to get their permission. You can't just make amends to save your own butt and hurt somebody else. So you get their permission. You've consulted with others. So that's a sponsor, mentor, you asked God to help. What a concept. Oh, talking to God and asking for his help. And not just to get me out of this and I'll never drink again prayer, And if the drastic step is still indicated, we must not shrink from it. So you do things to quantify, you learn to work through things. And I mean, it's all about discipline. Okay. Am I willing to work through this so that I can be free of it? So, I mean, it's all in the book and nobody reads it. It seems to me, because nobody else knows it's there. Every time I show somebody, but I advised a guy, he had charges and he had to go to court, and what should I do? And I said, I don't know. Are you guilty? Yeah. Well, maybe you should plead guilty. And we talked about it. We talked to other people. We prayed about it. We decided, that's what he should do. They dropped the charges. He didn't even get to plea when we got in there. The cop didn't, the arresting officer didn't show up. They just dropped the charges and we walked out.
I've seen that so often.
Right. But that's what happens when you follow the simple instructions of this program. Miracles happen.
Because when you try and control it yourself, so, I'm going to plead not guilty and find a way out of it.
Right.
It doesn't go smoothly. I think it's almost like you try and control it and it doesn't allow the grace to come in, God's grace, to help you. So as soon as I've admitted that's something I really can't do it, I shouldn't do it, I'm going to give in, that's it, I'm going to take all the consequences, then amazing things happen. I'm like miracles happen, don't they? I mean, that's my experience, actually. That's a great example, that, Dale.
Well, it's been a great discussion, guys, and I hope you guys out there in the audience got the idea. Make that list, guys. If you're in a program of recovery that's modeled like ours, we can't emphasize enough. Make that list, put everybody on it, all. Pray to get willing to make those amends, seek some advice, and go on out and make amends. You got to apologize, but make amends and clean up the past. From what you heard from us, we're free today from all the anxiety that is produced by having that stuff on our head.
Are we 6 o'clock for the UK next week? Because your time changed. Because
our time goes back an hour.
Okay, so that's right. So we'll be equal. So it'll be 6 o'clock next week rather than 5 o'clock. Everybody in the UK.
Yeah, we had one hour. They fell back before we did. We wait till after Halloween, I think. So it's a little lighter for the kids going out in the streets. Yeah. Leesburg this weekend, guys. We are going to see a bunch of you down there in Florida. I'm going to see Danielle as well. I think she's staying the same place I am, actually, over at the foreman's house. And then we're going to be, if you're in the north of England, go to that North Pennines retreat and get free. After that, come to join us for Mocktail Hour in Soho in Manhattan and have some fun. And then we'll see you in Malibu, guys. Oh, at the Sarah Center overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It's a beautiful place to come get restored and get some freedom. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
And we'll see you next week right here on Recovery Live.
Go Red Sox.